Welcome to the MYS Virtual Hangout. Here's your host, MYS Music Director, Raul Gomez.
Hello everybody, you just witnessed our video intro and I love it so much. I think it's awesome, and it was created by a couple of good friends of mine who have been watching the show, and they made it and they sent it to me. They are Felipe Araya and Jose Julian Araya. They're both Costa Rican, father and son team. And I'm so thankful for it. And the voiceover on the intro was created by Sam Mori, a voice actor who has amazing work on his website, and I will credit him also at the end of the video. You'll see his website. You can go check out his work. And also, we're going to add music to this intro, not the music you just heard, but different music made by Griffin Barbieri, an MYS alum. And he sent it to me earlier this afternoon, and I look forward to adding that music to this video intro. So anyways, thank you for being here, everybody. Yesterday was so much fun with Kenji. I'm always so blown away by him and his artistry. His compositions are always so fun, and that's why we play them at MYS, and that's why people around the world play them. And if you go on YouTube and just search, for his name, Kenji Bunch, you're going to find lots of videos of different people playing his music. And just to hear him perform live yesterday was so amazing, and especially this piece for solo viola that's not even published. So literally nobody else in the world plays this piece but Kenji, and he played it for us. So that was pretty spectacular. And I'm super excited about our guest today. And many of you know him because Chris Whittemore is the Artistic Operations Manager at the Metropolitan Youth Symphony. Chris and I started our jobs at MYS just about the same time. In the summer of 2016. So this is our fourth season with MYS. And, over the course of the last 3.5, 4 years, we've enjoyed working together. And we have both learned a lot about our jobs and about, MYS, and also about Portland and the local scene here and the amazing talent that we have with so many young musicians. Just at MYS we have more than 500 of all ages and all instruments and all backgrounds, and that's just us. There are many, many more very talented young musicians in other organizations, in their schools, playing with their school band or their school orchestra. One thing that I have enjoyed doing over the last few years is serving as guest clinician at schools, so I love doing this. Band or orchestra directors from different schools around the area, they allow me to come in and work with their ensembles, from orchestra, string orchestras to advanced wind ensembles and bands. It's such a joy to go in and work with these school groups. One of the things that we're proud of at MYS is that we are a place where many of these young musicians from all these amazing school ensembles, they can come to MYS and they make music with students from other schools, other high schools, who share a lot of the same passions. And that at MYS all of these young musicians grow their artistry and their leadership and their musicianship, and then they go back to their school ensembles to inspire other students and to make their school groups even stronger. Every now and then I also get to be an adjudicator or a guest clinician at orchestra or band festivals or competitions, at the state level. And it's really very encouraging to see so many groups performing. This is something that's really, it was new to me when I came to Oregon to see this volume of amazing school ensembles. And a big reason why we have that here is that we have so many amazing teachers who are so dedicated, and they live for their students and their ensembles. Um, and unfortunately, all of them are currently not able to rehearse at school. Of course, because schools are closed for the time being. So I can't. I mean, I miss my orchestra so much. I miss you guys so much. I need to be making music with all of you. And I'm sure all of my colleagues who conduct school ensembles feel the same way. And we're all having to find different ways to exercise that creativity. And well, in my case, this is one of those ways, talking to all of you through these live streams and having amazing guests to talk to. Some of these guests you already know, some of them you will get to know, some of them are from here, from Portland, some of them are from outside of Portland. And what they have in common is that they're all amazing, and I admire and I am inspired by each one of them. So anyways, going back to Chris, so we started at the same time at MYS, and it's been really fun to see how our programs have grown since we've been here, thanks to the support of many people. We have an amazing team at the office, starting with Diana Scoggins, our executive director, who was here before Chris and I got here, and she's done amazing things for MYS since she took the job. And then our colleagues at the office, Carrie Stevens, who is our marketing wizard, and Sarah McLean, our programs manager. Ashley Wilson, who is our artistic operations associate, and she works very closely with Chris. All these people work very hard so that our programs can, happen at MYS. And then we have an amazing board of directors. They're so passionate about MYS, and community supporters, who give money to the organization so that we can function, but also who give, they volunteer for us and they give their talents and their time so that we are able to do everything that we do. So working with Chris and working with all of these amazing people has been very fulfilling, and is one of many reasons why I absolutely love what I do. Working in music education and working with youth orchestras, and working with so many amazing conductors and coaches at MYS is really fulfilling. And that's another big element of why our ensembles are such a great place for young musicians to come into, and that's because of our conductors. We have an amazing team of conductors in Portland, and also in our 2-string orchestras in Hillsborough, who are just spectacular educators. And we also have coaches who come and work with our groups in small, sectionals. We have many musicians from the Oregon Symphony and from other local professional orchestras who come in and work with their students. And also our Beginning Strings program, where we offer tuition-free beginning strings group classes to kids who qualify for it. Our beginning strings teachers are also amazing, and I admire them so much for what they do and what they bring to the organization. That's all to say, I'm very thankful to be a part of MYS. And again, part of the reason is because of all of these amazing people, which brings me to today's guest, Chris Whittemore. If you are an MYS student or family, you see Chris on Saturdays when you come to rehearsal. You probably chat with him at the front desk. If he's not, at the front desk at Roseway Heights, where we have our rehearsals, he's running around the building making sure that we all have everything that we need for rehearsals, from instruments to logistics and everything in between. But that's only really the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the things that Chris does for the organization. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring him in was so that he could share with all of the young musicians watching, everything that has to do with artistic operations, which is a big, a big part of the performing arts, industry, right? And all the many things that need to happen backstage, behind the scenes, so that any musician can even be on stage for a rehearsal or for a performance. There are, so many incredibly qualified and hardworking people who, make what we do possible. And Chris is a brilliant example of that. Okay, let's bring him in. This is always sort of the moment of truth here when I open Skype on my computer, and we just dial his Skype name, and at this point I'm still hoping that everything just works the way it's supposed to work. So here we go. Call him Chris. He should be standing by. Okay, and there he is. Okay, so Chris, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to the screen where we will see you, and there you are. Magic. It's so exciting every time that it works.
It does work.
Yeah, but then when it doesn't, you're in trouble. Our relationship with technology is such that we take it for granted, and when it doesn't work, that's when we think about it most of the time.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It goes.
Okay.
It's going.
Yeah.
It's weird, obviously.
Yes.
Today is my third day working totally from home.
Mm-hmm.
And today's been better.
Okay.
I feel like I'll probably reference this to you a lot. You and I know each other pretty well. I'm a pretty a structured person.
Sure.
I like my schedule. I like my routine.
Yes.
And I really struggle when I get knocked out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure a lot of people can sort of relate to. We've all sort of been turned on our head.
Yes.
A little bit, but you suddenly get knocked out of this routine, and you have to sort of reinvent everything, and from finding a workspace at home, which I'm in my kitchen, to I had a pretty great gym thing going on, and I've got to figure out how to get some exercise and not go crazy. So that's day 3, things are starting to settle.
But what has been the biggest breakthrough in terms of adjusting to working from home? Has there been anything that been a before and after, or has it been pretty gradual?
I think the biggest difference right now is that when Monday and Tuesday I was working at our kitchen island, which is just over here.
Yeah.
And sort of didn't have a desk and a workspace.
Sure.
And so I did that Monday and Tuesday, and it's really high, which I like for breakfast in the morning, but you can't sit there all day.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, my back was nope, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
So we got one of our tables that we had upstairs, brought it down and dusted it off, and
cool.
Gave me a little more space in the kitchen. So
yeah, well, we don't know how long this is gonna go, right? So it's important to find things that work, and especially if you work at a desk, to be comfortable and to be in a place where hopefully you have daylight and good ventilation, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we talk any longer, because you and I could talk for hours. Right?
And we do.
Yeah.
Watch out, everybody. You know you find out.
Right. Let's go right to our first game or segment. Okay? And then we'll talk a little bit more. So this is 2 Truths and a Lie with Chris Whittemore. Okay? And as we have been doing with our guests, let's go ahead and we'll have you read each of these facts Okay, 2 of them are true, 1 of them is a lie, and viewers will vote in the comments for which of these facts they believe is the lie. Okay, and then we'll keep talking. We'll do our other segments, and then towards the end we'll reveal the lie. Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's fact A. Go for it.
Okay. My husband is a well-known Portland drag performer.
Okay, so that's there on the screen. That's A. Okay, let's hear B.
Okay. I once attended Hollywood Week for American Idol.
Okay, and that's now on the screen. That's your B, and your C.
Okay. I once cooked dinner for a minor member of the British royal family.
Okay, on the screen. Now I have to say, so I know which one is the lie because we were like, we had our test call earlier and we kind of talked about it. But knowing you, honestly, I think any of these 3 could be all truths. So I think you picked good options here, and I'm curious to see what people will vote.
I am
Okay.
too.
Yeah. Cool. So we're gonna leave that on the screen for the time being. Are you drinking coffee or water?
Water.
Yeah. Okay.
My gala mug.
Cool. I have a Costa Rica
Oh, nice.
ox cart decoration mug, also with water. But I also have another Costa Rican ox cart wheel decorated mug with coffee.
Oh, well, good. I'm
So
glad you're prepared for anything.
I am. Yeah, I'm learning. And coffee is important. Cool. Okay. So I was telling everybody before you came on the call how you and I met, basically, that we started at MYS at the same time, and that over the years, we've seen MYS's programs grow, and we have also kind of adapted as we go, and our jobs have, evolved and changed and grown as well. But can we go way, way back? And especially for people who don't know you, will you just talk about yourself? Give us a little bit of of your journey.
Talking about
You know,
myself.
I was born in a rainy afternoon.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, actually, I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, believe it or not, but
Okay.
I was only lived there for a year and a half. My dad was getting his MBA at the University of Michigan, so that's
Cool.
why I
I
was there.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So I lived in Richmond, Virginia until I was 11, which is where I started playing the clarinet. I actually started private lessons before I was in band, so that was sort of unusual. And then we moved up to Northern Virginia, which is just a DC suburb, which is really where I consider myself to be from.
Yeah.
So when people ask me where I'm from, so it's Northern Virginia. So I went from there, graduated high school, went to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, for 4 lovely years in Chapel Hill. If you've never been, you should go. It's a beautiful place. Arguably the oldest public university in the country.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, and I have not been there actually, so I would.
Yeah, totally. It's a beautiful place. They have this argument with Georgia Tech about who is the oldest public university.
Okay.
Anyway, and then so I graduated with my undergrad in clarinet performance, and then I moved to Austin, Texas, to get my master's degree in clarinet performance at the University of Texas at Austin.
Okay.
And then taught clarinet lessons after that for 6 years. So had my own studio. We'll talk a little bit about like the structure in Texas is a little bit different. They have, at least in the big cities, they have robust band programs.
Okay.
And a lot of the middle school and high schools will they hire private teachers for the school. And they're independent contractors. So
wait, meaning come, like you would come and teach at the schools, but they're actually private students?
exactly. So I would come teach at the school, and the families were paying me individually,
Oh, okay.
for lessons. But the great there. I mean, there's a couple of great things about that, which is you're using their facility.
Right.
So I had and it was a lot of those schools were like the nice Wenger modular practice rooms, which
Yes.
for those of you that don't know what those are, if you go to like most, I would say music schools, like universities, they have these like double paned walls and doors
Yeah.
that are soundproof, mostly soundproof.
Yeah, those are nice.
Um, yeah. So I would start before school at one of the middle schools at 7:45 in the morning.
Mhm.
Teach a couple lessons before school, and then any class period that had clarinets in it, I was able to fit kids in during school in their band period,
Okay.
and then would teach 3, 4, 5 lessons after school, and would be done by 6 o'clock or something.
So we're doing a lot of
Um,
teaching.
Yeah, I was up so I did that for 6 years. I was up to 65 students
Wow. Oh,
at
weekly.
the peak of that. Yeah, weekly. Starting with sixth graders all the way up through seniors in high school. Um, so, which brings me to my next point, which was that I totally burned myself out
Mm,
from
sure.
teaching, and I enjoyed a lot of it, but I was an independent contractor, so I was teaching all of these lessons and doing all of the scheduling and all of the, money collecting and all of the, things like that at home on top of that. So I was doing all of the administration
Yeah.
for my own studio on top of that. And at one point, I think in my 5th year, which is really when my student numbers peaked, I calculated that I was in a lesson for 33 hours a week.
Hmm.
So I was actively teaching a lesson for 33 hours a week. Um, and so you sort of jigger the schedule so that you'd be at the middle school for a little bit, and then there's a free period, so you run over to the high school. Fortunately, in Texas, most of their schools are either next door to each other
Sure.
or pretty close, so I could sort of dip between schools. Um, so yeah, I was just tired, you
Yeah.
know. And I sort of said, I like there's certain things I like about it, and there's certain things that I don't like about it, and um, after my 5th year, I decided, okay, I'm going to give myself one more year because I didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
But I said, okay, my 6th year is my last year doing this specific thing, and I need to go find something else for myself.
Yeah.
So
And at the time, were you also performing or freelancing and playing gigs, or was it mostly
I
teaching?
wasn't.
Okay.
That was all teaching.
Yeah.
I left grad school having sort of the delusion that I was going to play and teach.
Yeah.
Um, and I talked to a lot of colleagues there. You really have to, if you want to play, you really have to make a conscious effort to say, this is the maximum size of my studio,
Sure.
and and devote this much time to practicing
Yeah.
and going to play for people when you're trying to sort of establish yourself,
Yeah.
outside of school. And I just kept taking on kids. I couldn't say no to kids that wanted to take clarinet lessons,
Yeah.
So that's sort of all of a sudden it sort of ballooned into this thing, and I was like, oh, I'm not really playing.
Right. And it sounds like you were also doing, I mean, just to keep up with that many students, you have to do quite a bit of, management and basically your administration and
Yeah,
organizing.
planning and things like that. Fortunately, by the end of it, I felt like I had a pretty good curriculum going
Yeah.
and a pretty good series of of pieces and etudes and things that I would sort of work through with everybody. So I sort of had a system.
Yeah.
Um, but like for example, we would get the sort of the disadvantage then of working in schools like that is that we would get to their week or two or sometimes 3, depending on how they want to do it that year of standardized testing
Hmm.
for the state, and they go, well, campus is closed, you can't teach,
Yeah.
right? We would get warning and all this other stuff, but um, you have to plan around that. You have to work around that. Ultimately, what I ended up doing is all of my students were on a contract for a set number of lessons for the year. And so I think it was 30, I think I had 32 lessons for the year. And so I sort of planned in, oh, I know we're going to miss spring break. I know we're going to miss winter, a couple weeks for winter break. I know we're going to miss a week for standardized testing,
Yeah,
and I sort of chunked it out so
yeah.
that they knew.
And let me ask you something. I mean, you went to college for clarinet performance, and then you find yourself, then you went to UT, you got your master's. And do you find that during those years, I mean, was there anything that you learned when it comes to administration and management that you were able to apply to when you were teaching, or were these skills that you learned elsewhere or just by doing? Like, how do you acquire, how do you get better at that?
The actual admin.
Right, yeah, everything you had to do in order to, do all the planning for your teaching studio. And
I think some of it. I think I'm lucky that some of it is innate, and sort of that's how my brain works naturally.
yeah,
Just in terms of like creating a plan. I mean, so much of just my high school training being in band, having to uh, schedule my life right
mhm,
around things like band in the fall, which I had my parents' help to sort of teach me how to manage my time.
yeah, yeah,
My senior year in high school, I was taking AP biology, which was a bear of a class,
hmm,
and so you learn to sort of structure your life around those things to get everything done, right? So I think some of it's that.
yeah. Because a
Uh,
lot of it comes down to time management.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
pure time management, and especially high school students, they're so busy. We talk about this,
Yeah,
quite often when we're aware of all the many things our students do in addition to MYS, right?
yeah, absolutely. Um, and so some of those skills came from that. Um, and then I think it's a lot of asking advice.
Mm,
I was, okay, how old are you when you finish grad school? If you do degree straight through, you're like 23,
mhm,
24 years old.
right.
And there were people that had made a career out of that sort of teaching and that sort of studio structure. And so uh, when you have the sort of that teaching structure, you have a couple of lessons before school, and
Yeah.
then let's say there's no clarinet in the first period. Well, actually, this one middle school I was teaching at, that was their planning period, the first period.
Hmm.
And so, the band directors are all there and they're planning and stuff like that. But then sometimes you're just hanging out with other private teachers
Yeah.
um, that have done this for
Yeah.
years, right? And so, whatever my sort of challenge was that day, um, it's very easy to look at somebody and say, you've done this for, 5, 10, 15 years. How have you dealt with this? How has that changed over time? And just sort of asking for people's advice and, um, not reinventing the wheel.
Hmm. Did you
You know
find
what I
that
mean?
people were pretty open to giving advice and to helping out and sharing what they know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, particularly, yeah, I mean, because there's no threat there.
Sure,
You're
sure.
all sort of on the same team. And so definitely from other private teachers, I got a lot of good advice. And especially early on, there was I would sit down with my band director colleagues who were just amazing educators
Hmm.
and just go, okay, this kid isn't getting this. What am I doing?
Yeah.
What do I need to say differently?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And the magic. One of the other magical things about band in Texas is that they all start in homogenous classes. So all of the sixth graders started in clarinet class or in flute class or in trumpet class or whatever, and that's all they did for that first year. And so
That's different from Oregon because here it's just beginning band and all different
so
instruments, or
and somebody will probably correct me at some point, but I think most beginning band is all together. I think some programs will do like flute, clarinet, trumpet, trombone
mhm,
for the first year, and then the second year they'll split them out to fill. Clarinet players will become oboe players and saxophone players, and
got it.
um, trumpets will switch to French horn or whatever.
Okay.
That's sort of the other model that I know. I've never worked in a system like that, so I sort of can't be the first one to speak to it.
Yeah.
But you know, the advantage to that is these kids would get, you know, their 45 minutes a day of clarinet class, and then they would come to their lesson once a week, and I'd be able to go to the band director and go, you know, what are they doing in class? Are they doing this in class? This seems weird. What, you know, like, what's happening? And so we sort of you know, being a team
Yeah.
to make them better. Which I mean, it's an amazing system. I was very very lucky. And I look at because I'm not from Texas, and I grew up going to my teacher's house, you know, after school once a week. You know, I knew how lucky I had it there. I mean, you can't do that anywhere else.
Yeah.
You know, you just can't. It's not, you know. So anyway, it was a great time doing that.
So you acquire all these skills, and
Yeah.
then you're in Portland, and you're starting your job with MYS.
Yeah.
And so, would you? I mean, your job, it's such a big job, and you do such a good job. And also now we have Ashley Wilson, who's also fantastic, and you know she works very closely with you. And such a big job, but would you try your best to sort of describe all of the different things that you do?
Yeah, I wear many hats.
You
I
do.
wear many hats, and so it's mostly sort of, and I think of it sort of in terms of what a bigger organization might have. So I look at like the Oregon Symphony a lot. But so I'm sort of operations manager most of the time, which is a lot of scheduling and scheduling auditions, scheduling rehearsals. Anytime, you know, symphony orchestra has a weeknight rehearsal somewhere, I'm scheduling that. The venues for all of our community concerts, I'm scheduling. Diana, thankfully, deals with all of the P5 downtown. So anytime we do Newmark or Schnitzer, she's handling the scheduling of that,
Yeah.
which is a vastly complicated process that I don't entirely understand.
And will you, Chris, sorry to interrupt you, but will you give viewers also a sense of how many community concerts we have? I mean, we have quite a big.
It's like by the end of the season, it's like 14 concerts total
Right.
between downtown and community.
Yeah.
It's between, and that's usually counting. You know, we have a mid-year chamber concert, and we have symphony orchestra's extra concert in January, and things like that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's anywhere between 3 and 5 concerts a term.
Right.
That we do. So that's like sort of the operations aspect of it. There's also sort of a personnel manager bit to it, in terms of hiring ringers if we need to fill some spots.
Yeah.
In, you know, usually symphony orchestra, but occasionally concert orchestra, or you know, somebody will need a harp player or something.
Mhm.
Got to go find that person. You know, knowing our kids, which I'm very lucky to get to know a lot of the kids that are in our program, and sort of knowing, just keeping my ears open to like, oh, I heard that, you know, so and so is missing this week, or so and so is, you know, doing really well at this. I'm constantly amazed at the activities that our kids are involved in.
Yeah.
Science Olympiad and fencing and water polo
it's
and
really
golf
amazing.
and, you know, all these things, and they all excel at them. And I have my group managers, which I also like. I couldn't function without my volunteer group managers in every group, that sort of help keep track of sort of the personnel aspect of our organization.
Yeah.
There's a music library component to it, which again, thankfully, we have Ashley for 99% of it. We get some great, fantastic volunteers to come in and help us with some of that music preparation work as well. But you know, Ashley doing all of the copying and scanning and making sure things get on the website, and organizing our theory program.
Yes.
She's taken here and done a great job with. So
you also book
is,
our coaches.
Oh yeah, I do that as well. There's another sort of ringer. Yeah, I mentioned the ringers, but yeah, so all of the coaches, and working with you to create the coaching schedule to begin with and figure out what those slots are, and and hire the people that need to go in there. There's an artistic planning aspect to what I do. I'm also very lucky and thankful that you always listen to my opinion about things. You don't always take it, which is fine, or you don't have to. But in terms of organizing our concert season, what groups go on what concerts, figuring out the logistics of, trying to put groups that have percussion on similar concerts. So, we've got to that's another part of my job is, loading the percussion truck and making sure we have our equipment at all of the various places that we need it. What else do I do? I don't know.
Well, I was gonna say that, I'm so lucky because, I was saying this earlier that I'm always surrounded by amazing people. But the fact that you're an amazing musician and you have all the experience that you have, I mean, your feedback is always so valuable, and I, for me personally, it's great to have you and people like you around me who are able to just look at me in the eyes and say, that's a terrible idea, you know?
Or that's a great idea. Can you hack it?
Right.
Because I feel like there's a lot of that too. There's and I have said this. You and I can sit here and tell each other how lucky we are all day. But that there is an aspect of my job that I love, which is I get to help facilitate an artistic vision, sort of to its its ending, its happy ending.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have to be like the what's the word? I don't have to be the big idea person. I don't feel like I've ever been super great with like being the driving force of whatever creative thing, but I'm a really good like co-pilot or like backseat driver maybe sometimes. Of okay, cool, here's how we take this idea and here's how we either modify it to make it fit the time frame that we have, or is it too ambitious, can we do more, and sort of be able to polish it into something that we end up putting on the stage at the end of the term.
Well, and that's a big, I mean, professional orchestras have, artistic planning senior staff. Like that's a big thing also in the operations and artistic, planning of in professional orchestras. So it's not always necessarily the music director or the conductor, but there's this team of people helping make many of those decisions and helping bring those plans to fruition. So, okay, another reason why I wanted to have you on is that, I would love for you to give sort of your overview and your take of things that happen in a theater on like, whenever you get to the theater, in the case of MYS, often we have 2 or 3 ensembles, and there's a lot of people moving around and student musicians like being like, brought to one place to another place. But when students are in a theater, say Schnitz, what should they be aware of? What people like should like? What are some like stage, like etiquette and logistics and things they need to be aware of?
Yeah. Well, and this is another part of my job that I really like is that I get, there is a teaching aspect, particularly for symphony orchestra because they get to do all of their concerts at the Schnitzer, the Newmark, to help them sort of know what's going on, and they have adapted very well, and I don't have to remind them so much anymore, which I really appreciate always. So, I mean, every theater has stagehands, professional stagehands, that are a group of union workers that are trained in all of the aspects of the theater. At the Schnitzer, they have 5 heads. So they have a head carpenter, a head electrician, head of fly, which is anything that is suspended over your head. um, head audio, and head of props. And so anytime you do a concert at the Schnitzer, those 5 people are required to make your show happen. Each of them has sort of or has a different job. And I really come to understand that so much of their purpose is safety, and that they have certain rules and certain ways that they do things to keep people safe on their stage and to make sure that your instruments stay safe and nobody's falling over each other and things like that. That nothing like drops out of the grid from a light and hits you on the head and all that other stuff. Um, so they're great. And I work directly at P5 with a production supervisor who is they report to. And the production supervisor isn't always there on site,
Yeah.
but they're definitely, that's my main contact.
Do you have any do's and don'ts for young musicians on stage in the theater?
The biggest thing, and it always seems like the funniest thing I think to people that are new to it, the biggest thing is you can't move your own chair and stand. That they have to move your chair and your stand for you. And actually, a professional musician friend of mine told me recently that she learned this the hard way. That she went to put her violin and bow, I think, in one hand, and to try and move a chair or stand with the other, and ended up, hitting her violin on a chair, something like that. So some of it is that, right? Some of it is, but so much of it for me. I mean, another part of my job is designing a stage plot, and I design it in a very specific way, most of the time to minimize changes, so that we can get as many groups on stage as we can without having to move things, because it saves us time.
Yeah.
So there's some of that too, right? Of I have decided that chair goes in a specific place, and they have put it there for me. And if it's all moved around, it just gets really challenging when as all of the groups come and go.
Yeah.
So that's some of that. And then the other really important thing is making sure that you ask for permission before you go onto the stage. And one of the things I like to tell is so there's actually, and I don't know it specifically, but I believe there's a union rule that nobody can be on stage when somebody is up in the grid, which is literally a grid, but it's this metal, basically catwalk, where a lot of the microphones are hung from and the lights are hung from and things like that. And that stuff has to get changed sometimes between shows or whatever. And when somebody's up there, you're not allowed to be below them.
Yeah.
And for exactly what you just said, if they drop something and it hits you on the head, I mean, that can be fatal.
Yes.
So you have to be just aware of what's going on around you. And I always ask for, unless it's obvious, right? If there's people on the stage already, or if they're on stage already, sometimes it's still better to ask, right? But yeah, again, their job is to keep everybody safe, and so just asking permission before you go on stage. And then when they go on break, which they get breaks, and the stage is closed, and nobody's allowed on stage because none of those safety things are in place.
Yeah.
So at the Newmark,
yes.
At the Newmark, they've got these big garage doors that come down, and so you actually physically can't go on stage. Schnitzer doesn't have that, so.
Yeah. So basically, if there's nobody on stage, don't just go on stage. Find out if you can go on stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Look, along these lines, I would like to move on to our next segment. Okay. Because instead of an instrumental performance, you shared with me that you would like to share with young musicians some of the best advice you've ever gotten from people in your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's really valuable. And in order to do that, I created a very special screen for you. So I've been putting performers on stage at the Schnitz, a big photo of the Schnitz, and they're on stage and there's a crowd going wild. For you, I prepared something a little different, and here it is. Okay, so this segment is Sound Advice with Chris Whittemore. And I have put your Skype screen on a commencement podium that I found on the internet. And the microphone, I don't know if you can see it, probably not, but the
No, I'll watch
microphone
it.
on the podium is also like right by your face. So you'll be sharing your sound advice with a crowd of thousands at this here live streamed commencement.
Awesome.
Okay, so there you
Yeah.
have it. So everybody, this is Sound Advice with Chris Whittemore. Take it away, Chris.
Well, and so you started the top of this. I did watch the very beginning talking about teachers. And this is sort of my whole thought process in doing this was that, we're always learning from somebody and to sort of try to appreciate those people as you go.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all the things that not all of them, but these are things that have sort of stuck in my head as time has gone on. So my first thing was from my undergraduate clarinet professor, Donald Ayler, who gave me the advice: do what you have to stay in your field. When I was a young clarinet player, I was getting my degree in in clarinet performance and looking at a career as a musician. And he said, if that means, working in a music store, if that means teaching lessons, if that means performing, if that means doing clarinet, instrument repair, if that means working in a music library, if that or a record store, whatever, you have to do to be surrounded by music, is what you have to do it keeps you motivated, and it keeps you making connections with people that are going to be your connections for the rest of your career. And sort of on that same topic, he told me all of the people that you're in school with, you will run into again at some point in the future.
So true.
And as it happens, I went to undergrad at UNC with Won-Kok Kim, who is now the clarinet professor at the University of Oregon. And he and I actually studied with the same teacher in high school as well. So he's a year older than me. So I followed him to North Carolina, and then we went to different places and whatever. So that's that. The second thing that I have listed was from one of the great band director colleagues that I was telling you about in Texas at Henry Middle School in Leander, Texas. His name is Robert Herring. He's fantastic. And it's actually not advice that he gave to me, but advice that he always gave to his band. And this is, remember, middle school band. He was teaching the advanced band. And he always told them that life is about choices. And I thought it was so important and cool that he was pointing that out to his middle school students. But it's also something that I've, remembered and tried to keep in my head over, I'm in anything, right? Is, your life is about the choices that you make, not necessarily good or bad or what, you don't have to put a quality on them, right? But you're choosing to, and he was always, you're choosing to sit on the couch instead of practice your clarinet, whatever, and that was usually the context. But that's always sort of stuck with me. My dad has been a huge influence on a lot of things that I do, and his thing that he told me many things, but he always said, make a plan and plan for the plan to change. So I don't always do great at the planning for it to change thing. I get really stuck on a plan because I love me a plan.
Yeah.
But that's always been valuable. Sort of like, know what you're going to do, plan it out, and just know that it's going to change and it's going to be different. And whether it's 30 minutes from now or 30 days from now, like it's gonna be different. And this is, what we're going through now is a perfect example of that.
Yes.
And then my last thing, which actually isn't a piece of advice that I got, but it's advice that I like to give, if you'll sort of you've given me the platform, so whatever. is that I want more people to start with questions. They're an amazing way to avoid conflict, to avoid miscommunication, to learn. Is that if you just start with a question, and it can be something as simple as like, "Hey, so I heard you say this thing. Is that what you meant?
Sure.
Can you clarify that for me?" Instead of coming at somebody saying, well, you said X, Y, and Z, and now I'm mad about it, right? Or, hey, it sounds like you want to do this. I mean, you and I do this all the time, right? Here's your idea. Have you thought about this thing, that thing, that thing,
Yes.
right? And you just get so much further with questions, I feel, when you start with a question, right? Instead of coming at something and making a statement, and then you make somebody else negate it, and then it's just awkward, right? So that's my thing.
That's
Try and
awesome.
start with questions. Yeah. Thanks.
I think that's fantastic advice. I love that. Can we, everybody, get your applause emojis? So let's give a hand here to this segment, Sound Advice with Chris Whittemore.
It's not nearly the rockabilly whatever that Kenji put on yesterday.
Well, I think both were amazing in their own way. And this that you shared is actually really excellent advice. I especially love the idea of starting with a question. So I agree that it's such a productive way of engaging somebody.
Yeah.
And I guess I just never really thought about it in concrete terms, as you put it.
Yeah.
So I think that's great practice.
Well,
Awesome.
it's always shorter, right? It's always shorter to ask a question than to make a statement, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and it's an invitation.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
it's an invitation to engage somebody instead of
sometimes an
imposition
or
barrier. Yeah.
I think that's great. So thank you for that, Chris. I love it. Let's bring you back to our main screen here, and we're gonna move right to our segment. What are you into? Okay, so you have many talents and many interests. So what are you into these days?
Cooking. It's always cooking. That's like my main thing, which these days is actually sort of challenging, partially because I can't go to the grocery store like on a whim.
Yeah.
I gotta. It's like the one. Actually, it's the one. Now I just realized it's the one part of my life I don't plan.
What, your
Right?
meals? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I do a little bit, but it's usually like, this is what I feel like making for dinner, so I go to the grocery store and get those things, and that's what I do. I drive my husband nuts because I'll text him from work and go, "Hey, can you go find this cookbook and look up this recipe? I think it's in this chapter. Can you take a picture of the ingredients and send it to me?" He's like, you could put all of these on Google Drive,
Okay.
and then you could look it up yourself. I'm like, no, it's fine. It's like, he works from home, so it's easy.
That's funny. Do you have any specific types of food you like making?
Many. I feel like the answer you're going for is Thai food. I was a big, was a big, I always look at cooking as a way to study something, a place that I can't go. I'm a big studier. I always like learning things, so I try and find, resources and cookbooks and things that are written by people that are from whatever place or have some sort of like direct, cultural understanding of that cuisine. So I went through a big Thai food phase. I've spent a little bit of time making a lot of traditional Chinese food. It's like, that one's like sort of a little bit, and also this is not to say that it's like finite or all representing either, right? Because like all of these foods have so many different regions, and it is different from family to family. So I'm always starting with a cookbook and sort of going from there.
Cool. Let me ask you the same question that I asked Kenji yesterday. Have you made anything recently that you have been so proud of that came out so good? And have you made anything recently that you've been like, oh, this is going straight into the trash?
So, I can't think of anything that I've been like I've like blown myself away. I'm a pretty harsh critic of my own cooking. I did just make a really great beef short rib and acorn squash braised thing um, earlier this week. So I mean that was just this week. Um, but it's funny because I was listening to his interview and have you asked that question, and I knew immediately what my answer would be, and I knew you'd ask me. I have this winter squash soup that I make. That chicken stock and butternut squash and acorn squash and some herbs, and you cook it until the squash is soft, and then you blitz it up in a blender and add a little cream at the end, and it's super easy. It's great to have in the winter. Um, Butternut squash has a pretty high sugar content, so it's nice and sweet and whatever. I had a kabocha squash, which is like a Japanese pumpkin. You know what I'm talking about? It's like this big, it's green.
Yes.
So I had a kabocha squash. I had some leftover from a Thai curry that I made, and an acorn squash. I was like, oh, maybe I can put these two things together, and I'll make the soup that I've made before, right? And we started cooking it, and my husband Jordan and I are sitting here in the kitchen, and it starts to boil, and it started to sort of smell. It was off, right? It was a little fishy. I was like, oh, weird. Okay, cool. We're gonna finish it. Whatever. I got all the way through the end of this preparation. I had a final soup, and it was inedible.
Oh,
It
no.
didn't matter how much sugar I added. It didn't matter how much salt I added. It didn't matter how much extra heavy cream I added. And I don't know that I have ever, and I have a 7-quart Dutch oven. I mean, I made days worth of this soup, and I never had to pour anything down the sink like that before. And I looked at him and I went, "Okay, where are we going for dinner?" Like, usually, it's like something's not great, and we'll eat it. We'll push through because I hate throwing away food. But it was one of those times
Man.
I just can't. We just can't eat it.
Okay. Well, I mean, you learned something from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there you
Absolutely.
have it. I love that. Okay. Now let's move on to our next segment, and after this one, we will reveal your truths and a lie. Before that, it's Say What with Chris Whittemore. So this is where you share something unexpected or surprising that people who know you might not know, and people who don't know you might be surprised to know.
This actually probably I'll share my thing that I thought of in a second. But when I sat down to do this interview and I put this blazer on, then I looked in the pocket, and I have um, all of these tickets, all these concerts that I've gone to here in Portland.
Ah,
That I just I just stick my ticket in my pocket when I'm done, and I didn't mean to, but I just realized that
they're from.
pictures in an exhibition with the symphony, Nutcracker,
Oh, that's cool.
Barber Seville, Portland Opera, Stravinsky, Firebird. Anyway, I thought you thought that was pretty fun. Unexpected.
That's
definitely.
unexpected.
So I actually have a minor in German literature, which was one of my many academic curveballs that I threw myself when I was an undergrad.
And why German?
So I started studying German when I was in 8th grade, which was the year that you could start a language. And my mom was like, "Yeah, I heard German's really hard," because she took Spanish in high school. And so it's sort of Spanish, French, German, and Latin, I think, were our choices.
Okay.
And she said, "Yeah, I heard German's really hard," and I was like, "No, I'm gonna do that one then." And that's 100% the reason that I chose it.
You went for the challenge.
Yeah, it was like, oh, that's the thing that's harder than all the other ones. Yeah, I'm gonna go for that one.
Okay.
So I took that all the way through high school, and then when I got to college, I was like, well, I needed 3 semesters of a language or something for my degree. And then by that point, I was like, well, why stop now? Because as a musician, that a European language is never a bad idea.
Yeah. Very true.
So I was like, yeah, I've gotten this far already. Why don't I just keep going? And the minor was sort of, I just happened to have enough classes. It was like if I if I take one class every semester, I will end up with a minor, and I just have to take them in the right categories. So
Cool.
just sort of
Well, yeah,
worked out.
that's unexpected. I will give you a say what. So, there you go. Okay, let's move on to the reveal of your truths and a lie. And actually, I'm gonna put them back up on the screen.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have all three of them. And let's go ahead and reveal one of your truth. Oh, wait. Have people voted? Let me see. If you're watching, everybody, and you didn't vote, or if you already voted, can you please vote again? So let's see what people think here on the comments. Okay, so we'll just give folks like a few seconds, right? Many already voted, but some people joined afterwards. So the three facts are on screen. So we're given a few seconds. I think we can go ahead. Let's go ahead and reveal one of your truths, Chris Whittemore.
Okay, so I actually attended American Idol's Hollywood Week.
Aha. Okay, tell us about that.
So I sort of made this purposely a little misleading. I actually attended as a guest. So I was not the contestant, but I was invited by a contestant they got a certain number of friends or family to go. And so I spent an entire week sitting at the Kodak Theater in Hollywood, watching all of the performances, looking down and being like, oh, there's J-Lo. I honestly can't remember who else. Oh, Harry Connick Jr. Was one of the other judges, and I can't remember who the third one was.
And how legit is it? Like, are they actually, like, because I always wonder about these shows. They're,
I mean, I think it's interesting. My cynical message is don't ever let anybody tell you that reality music TV is about ability. I think there were definitely a lot of talented people there, right? But they're also really they're looking for somebody with a story. They're looking for somebody that they can market after you win.
Yeah.
Things like that. I mean, the judges' feedback I think is pretty legit. I mean, they are sitting there like listening to your performance and giving you feedback. So that they're industry people, so they have experience. But no, I mean, I heard some people that were, I mean, as a trained musician, not as good as I would have wanted them to be.
Sure.
And there are some of them that I thought were like, wow, that person's fantastic, and they did move on. So, I mean, I think just like anything, it's sort of there's many factors. So, yeah.
Okay, well, so we're gonna remove that from the screen because that is true. You attended American Idol's Hollywood Week. That leaves us with two facts. Why don't you go ahead and reveal your other truth, which will in turn reveal the lie, but we'll talk about the truth first.
Okay, so the other truth is that my husband is indeed a well-known Portland drag performer.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh man, and there's so much to talk about. Diana Fire is his drag name, and it is his creative outlet.
Yeah.
And he was a dancer in high school, and that's sort of the way he gets his art out into the world. And I'm very proud that I get to sort of accompany him on that journey and go to shows with him. And so it's a lot of fun. It's something we can sort of do together as well as
He's awesome. So that's great. Okay, and so that leaves us with your lie, which is that you have actually not cooked dinner for a minor member of the British royal family. So if you voted C, you are correct. So what led you to that particular lie?
No, I think I cook dinner a lot. I hadn't mentioned this, but I lived in London for a semester in undergrad. I studied abroad, so like I've been to Europe enough that maybe.
Cool. Okay. Cool. Okay, so if you guys, and I see several C's here and there, so uh, but was pretty balanced. I see some A's and some B's too. Okay, and then we're getting here close to the end. Last thing that we do with you, Chris, is the plug. So here's where you get to
Yeah.
plug anything that you want to plug, whether it's a project or to talk about anything that's important to you right now and that you want people to know about or pay attention to.
Well, this live stream, I hope that people, when it gets posted as a video, go and share it.
Oh.
Not just because I'm on it, but because we're doing really cool things, I think, with our guests. So I hope people go and share that a lot on social media. I know Sarah on Friday mentioned this as well, but the Berlin Philharmonic Digital Concert Hall, I believe, is still doing free subscriptions. I think you can get the subscription through the end of March,
Okay.
and then it lasts through, I think, April 15th. I don't know if they've extended it or not, but it's literally every Berlin Philharmonic concert. That I mean, since like when did Simon Rattle start? No, it wasn't that long ago. But anyway, it's been like a while.
Mhm.
They've got like a good like 10 years of concerts on there.
Yeah.
And so all of our I feel like everybody should be going and downloading that app. It's a very well designed app. And just consuming as much new music as they can. And then sort of similarly, the Metropolitan Opera in New York has an app called Met Live on Demand. And they are doing a similar thing, although they're not as open with all of their performances. They're doing one free opera every night. This week, everything is Wagner.
Mhm.
So if you have an extra 4 or 5 hours in your life, I go take advantage of that. Last week was like some Donizetti and Verdi and Puccini and stuff like that. So they did a lot of like the Italian guys last week. So they're doing Wagner all this week. I hope they continue it. I haven't seen a future schedule, so
Yeah.
go check that out. And yeah, I guess that's probably it.
Cool. Okay. Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. You're awesome. And thank you for spending some time with me and with everybody watching. So again, people, get your applause emojis out. Give Chris a big hand. We're very thankful. And we all hope to see you, Chris, in person when we resume rehearsals, whenever that is.
Awesome. Yeah.
So thank you again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you go now, and we'll wrap up the show.
Okay.
All right, bye. Thank
Have
you. Okay, everybody. Thank you again to Chris Whittemore. It's always so fun to talk with him, and I think he brings such an important and rich perspective to what we do as musicians, and also as those of us who are working professionally in the arts education, music education field. And I think that all young musicians watching also have a lot to learn about all of that happens behind the scene, so that we can all perform. So thank you, Chris. Tomorrow, you guys, tomorrow, Joe Kai is going to be joining our Hangout with his violin, and I am also going to grab my violin that's right there behind me, and we're going to jam, and it's going to be fun. Joe is super cool. He's performed with a couple of MYS ensembles before, Misfits and Jazz Ensemble. Look him up. Just do yourself a favor. Look him up today. Check out his music on streaming platforms and his music videos on YouTube. Go to his Instagram. He is a force of nature and such a positive and uplifting guy. Many of you know him already. It's going to be so fun. I cannot wait, also because I'll get to play the violin. And then on Friday, Gabriela Lena Frank, amazing, worldwide renowned composer and activist, and just an all-around wonderful, wonderful person. And then going into next week, we already have our lineup full for the week. Charles Noble is going to be talking with us Tuesday at 4 p.m. He is a violist. He's the associate principal viola for the Oregon Symphony. He is a very, very creative person with also many varied interests. He has a podcast. He's working on some streaming stuff too. He has a blog that where he posts regularly. I'm very much looking forward to talking with Charles. And the day after, Michelle Merrill. She's an amazing conductor. I met Michelle years ago because we were students in a conducting workshop together. And she has an amazing career. Currently, well, for several years, she was associate conductor of the Detroit Symphony. And she was also the Philip and Lauren Fisher Community Ambassador for the Detroit Symphony. And currently, in addition to guest conducting all around the world, she is the music director of the Coastal Symphony of Georgia. So I'm super excited for you guys to get to know Michelle. And she, after Gabriela this Friday, Michelle will be our second, let's say, out of town, out of Portland guest. And I'm very excited to chat with her. So mark your calendars, you guys, Tuesdays through Fridays, 4 p.m. And that brings us to the end. So thank you, everybody. What I'm going to do now is I am going to stop the stream. We'll go into our credits screen, and I will answer some comments. I will answer some questions on the comments. Okay? So thank you again, everybody. This has been the MYS Virtual Hangout. Thank you for watching. Thank you to our guest, Chris Whittemore. Thank you to everybody who has sent me stuff like the opening, the intro, and the music, and the voiceover, and all of the great feedback we have been receiving. So thank you again. And here is the credits, and I'll play a little music, and I'll go to the comments. Okay, see you later.